Well, hello there and welcome to Travels with Geordie. If this is your first visit, my name is Peter Knowles and I live here in Victoria, British Columbia aboard this classic wooden motor cruiser along with the loving memory of my pup Geordie, all while fixing it up for some pretty major cruising someday. If that's the sort of thing you might find interesting, please consider sticking around and subscribing. Snow! Holy moly! I can tell you, this is an awful lot of snow for Victoria, British Columbia, and well, it'll be gone in a day or so, but still, this is pretty significant. It's been a long night, up every couple of hours to shovel and check that there isn't overwhelming weight on either of the boats, and we've come through it pretty well. Well folks, this is the big day. It's Monday, and as I promised you, going to pick up the new Bay Marine right now. So excited, and with any luck I'll also be able to pick up the new engine bed timbers, because of course I can't put the engine in without the timbers. Yeah. And just an update for those of you who haven't been following along, I have recently bought a brand new Bay Marine diesel engine and transmission to put in the boat to repower it. So excited about it. But what makes it really exciting is that the engine and transmission were completely paid for by you viewers. Thanks so much. Let's go get it. And we're back at Gartside, ready for the load up. Safety first.
That's true. You got
All right then, loaded up, strapped up, we're ready to go. Sadly, I'm not going to be able to pick up the engine beds today. They're not ready, which is a shame because they're 2 minutes from here and I'm not all that close to the marina, but that's okay. We'll get that sorted out in the next day or so. The truth is, this engine is so much lighter than the Perkins that was in here before. I never told you. I thought the Perkins 4236 was 650 pounds. When I delivered it to the shipping company to send it off, it weighed in at just shy of 1,200 pounds. So this actually is about 650 pounds. So the truck doesn't even know it's in here now. Anyway, that's good. Okay, so let's go home. We'll give you a proper tour when we get there. Well, there, folks, there you go. Safe and sound. I can't tell you how excited. I probably can. You can imagine how excited I am about this. It is just, it's unbelievable to imagine having an engine that is just, it's for the life of me. I mean, I'm 58 years old. This will be running the boat happily long after I'm gone. It's just fantastic. So should we take a little tour? Okay. For those of you who know, it's a Bay Marine 60, which is a marinized Kubota block, marinized in England by the company Bay Marine. 60 horsepower. It's actually 56 horsepower, so slightly less. And it's mated to a PRM transmission, which is an English transmission, and very, very stout. It's much bigger than is needed for this. This thing is good for, I think, about 180 horsepower, but I like the transmission, I like the technology in it, and it has a neat feature in that it can go forwards or reverse without, in other words, the same gearing can work in forward and reverse. You can use it as a forward or reverse transmission. In other words, the propeller can be either pitch. And I actually have a reverse propeller on the boat right now. And if I was ever to replace it, would probably end up with a forward pitched propeller, just depending on what was available. But the transmission doesn't care. You just change the cables around, so forward is reverse and reverse is forward. I really like the transmission. I think it's great. Everything about this is just so DIY friendly, if I can say that. I mean, the fuel supply and return ports right here just set up, cable harness, and I'm going to get a plug for this. I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do about wiring it. I may not actually use the built-in wiring loom, because several of the sensors I'm not using anyway, because I'm switching to a different set of gauges. More on that later. Certainly the Morse controls are super easy setup. The fitting's already on the end here for the throttle. The shutoff has an electric solenoid as well as a mechanical, should I need to do anything about that. Raw water pump, super easy up front, easy to get to, and this will just come off and go down into the sea strainer. Oil filter, super easy to get to. Because part of the reason this is going to be really easy to get to is because instead of having engine beds here, they're going to be here, so there's lots of room to get at all this stuff. I went with the 175 amp alternator, and that is largely because all of you generous people actually donated more to the engine fund than the engine cost originally, so I was able to upgrade the alternator, and so I'm pretty excited about that. The main thing that's great about that is it goes to a poly V belt, serpentine style belt, which will never give me any trouble with slipping. As you can hear, my truck is slipping because my alternator is too big. This is the cooling water drain, which is nice that it has a barb fitting on it so that cooling water can always be recovered. Further back, obviously starter. They give you a positive and negative big connection posts for the battery, which is nice. So that's easily set up. This is one of the connections to what the English call a califier. In North America, we just call it a water heater. You'll notice the exhaust elbow is missing from it. If you saw it in the episode, last week's episode or the week before, I can't remember where I first saw the engine. The reason it's off is because the raw water inlet for it stuck way up like that, and the cabin sole is right about here. I knew this in advance, so Bennett Gartside Marine Engines has arranged to have that cut and re-welded on an angle so that it will fit in this way, and I'll have the next couple of days. I'm really looking forward to that. These two balls on here, a few people have asked about what they are. They're actually accumulators. I got an optional soft shift adapter kit for the transmission, and what that does is, because it's a hydraulically shifted transmission, when you engage drive, let's say forward, hydraulic pressure closes bands on a clutch, I'm not quite sure how it works inside, but something like that. So the hydraulic pressure is what does that. So if you put a small accumulator in line, it will take a little longer for the pressure to come up for that to happen. So it just means that when you engage the transmission, it's a little softer. And the reason I did that is I got some advice about using transmissions like this with heavy gear. In other words, I have a 20-foot long propeller shaft, 1.5 inch diameter, 1.25 inches, I can't even remember actually, and a very large propeller. So when I engage the transmission, I do not want a lot of shock load coming through to the drive plate in here on the back of the flywheel. This transmission is much heavier, as I said, than the engine is used to having, so I don't want it to be putting any stress on the engine when it goes into gear. So this will alleviate that. Now these are adjustable. If I find it's too slow to put it into gear, like 1.5 minutes or something, I can change the pressure in these. I'm not sure I can do it myself, but anyway, more on that later. And then that will solve that. Again, super easy. Connect up to Morse controls, really neat. I'm not sure how I'm going to do the twin helm, because of course there's two sets of Morse controls because there's an upstairs helm on this. Whether I'll do it in the Morse controls or at the engine, anyway, that's to be determined. Underneath, I'm not going to take them out now. You can see some bubble wrap over some, here we go, and get this one out, chunks of steel. And what these are the special feet. Well, I'm not going to take them out right now, but basically these are just shipping feet. I arranged to have special engine mounts built that come out and up. Because of the nature of the engine in this boat, it has to sit very low. That's why I'm putting new engine beds in that are further sideways away from the engine and higher up. As a result, I needed custom feet, and I had Beta Marine do it. They do it as a service. It's not cheap, but it's worth it. So yeah, there we go. I'm super impressed, super thrilled. Now we just got to get the engine beds so I can put this in the boat. All right then, so I think we're now ready to go get the engine bed timbers, which is great. Of course, as I mentioned to you before, the engine is still in the back, but I think I can tweak them in on the other side. Anyway, let's go and see how we do. Oh, not bad at all. At least we had tip. About there. Whoop, that's about it. Right there. All right then, well these are a little longer than 10 feet, but that's probably good because there's some end splits. It does make for a little sketchy looking load, but I've done this a lot with heavier loads than this. Okay, let's bind it down. All right, that worked out pretty well, even have a safety flag. Well, this is West Wind Hardwood, my main wood supplier for wood on the boat. All the mahogany, all that kind of stuff all comes from here, including these beautiful Douglas fir timbers that will be the engine beds. I'd also ordered some more mahogany for work that I thought I was going to do in January, but because it hadn't any, now it's just a storage problem. Anyway, let's get this all home. All right then. Okay, home. Yeah, okay, it's perfectly fine. I've moved a lot of wood like this. Anyway, let's get it off. We get this gorgeous weather now, but apparently this week it's going to go to like -7 or -8 for 2 or 3 days, which is obscenely cold for here. So there's some things we're gonna have to do about that. All right. Almost 14 feet. So I can shorten these substantially. I might as well do the culling and the tidying of the ends here, save myself lugging. Okay, so I've actually done the exact measurements down in the bilge, and I cut it twice. So all of this comes off, and 10 inches at the other end. I'm having a terrible time keeping you upright. Okay. Well, good morning. It's just starting to snow out there. A very rare occurrence in Victoria, but we're coming on to a crazy cold snap for here, like really cold, like -6 or 8 extended for a couple of days. That is very cold for Victoria, so I've been involved in doing some infrastructure management and maintenance on the docks, a lot of winterizing the water systems and the sewage systems. Anyway, but now we're going to put the engine beds in. So down in the glorious glorious bilge, but I'm really quite pleased. So there are the timbers, brought them in last night, and unfortunately I have to do the preparation for them, the cutting, the trimming, the edging, all in my aft cabin, on top of a pile of mahogany, which I also picked up yesterday because I can't really work in here. The constraints of having to live aboard and work at the same time, but you know, I'm grateful that I really can. Okay, so a quick overview. Basically, the new engine beds are going to go down outside the existing engine beds, so they're going to sit on the floors right here, and there's easy 5.5 inches room. It reduces as you go aft, and I'll explain more about that later. In fact, there'll have to be a small trim. And then the new engine, bless its little heart, has custom extended feet, which I designed. I think I've told you about that, which will reach out to the new engine beds, which are quite a bit wider than standard, certainly much wider than the original engine beds. And I'll get into the logic of that in the future, but you can imagine then that once the new engine beds are in, that will take up the structure, and the old engine beds will be removed, but not yet, not till haul out. Of course, there's so many of you that are concerned, why am I putting the engine in advance of the haul out? And there's lots of reasons for it. I'm not going to continue getting into now. It's what we're doing. Okay, so prep stuff. Got to cut the timbers to fit. I'm going to chamfer them. I have to remove these 2 old plates for the old transmission mounts, and then we can start to squeak these in here. Holy moly. Oh. Holy mackerel. Yeah. Oh, well, I broke it. Yep, broke that one off. Not that big, really. Yay. time to cut these ends off, and in an effort to reduce the amount of sawdust getting in to the bilge, I'll work on this little platform here. Alrighty. I need a battery. Okay, this is where it's really going to get messy. Some of you may be familiar that I like to put a chamfer on heavy timbers. So basically I'm just going to put a 1/4 inch chamfer on all the 4 corners, and I'm going to do that with the chamfering little trough on my power planer. If you're not familiar with this setup, I know I've talked about it several times, so for some of you it will be very redundant, but this little notch on your power planer is so handy because it's an instant little 1/4 inch chamfer, and very, very, very handy. Okay, let's get set up for this. Okay, now you always cut yourself, you never know why or how. No blood on the wood, Peter. Anyway, because this is a pretty tight fit between the two bulkheads, I had planned to put a slight undercut on the back end of the timber so that it could roll down the way you put a bevel or an undercut on a door. But I don't think I will. I could always... It'd be really nice if they slid in the first time. Yeah, I'll just take a little nick off the other end. Anyway, and then I'm gonna slide in. But before I put it in, I'm gonna oil it. But not with tung oil, with Danish oil. I used to build timber frame homes, and we use this stuff basically as a wood sealer. It's mainly, this piece of wood is green, or relatively green. I want to seal the end grain and all the timbers right away, so as it dries out, which how much drying out is it going to do in the bilge, it doesn't split too much. But I've had tremendous success with this. It's cheap. It's not UV stable, so it's not a varnish that you'd use or an oil that you'd use somewhere outside where the sun could get to it. But I don't even know what it is. They call it Danish oil. It's probably mostly linseed. I don't have my glasses on. I can't even read it. I don't care. It's going to do a perfect job of what I'm looking for here. I'm just going to mop it on. Okay, well, there we go. Now I'm gonna let that soak in. It's pretty thick coat. I want to let it soak in as much as I can. And sort of to further the kind of vanity part of this project, we're gonna go to some extra lengths to keep these clean. Let me show you. All right then, well I had planned to line all the surfaces of the existing bilge that the new timbers were gonna touch with plastic. I bought some cheap plastic polyethylene and a brand new stapler. If I had a nickel for every one of these I bought over the years. I was gonna wrap it around the side of the existing engine beds and across the floor. It's just too finicky. It's just a ridiculous amount of yuck for very little benefit. I've gotten the inside of the boat remarkably clean now. The new engine beds are coming out again at the haul out, and I'll have a chance to tidy up any little dirty scuffs they have at the time. So, time to just slide them in. Whoops, I almost forgot something. Okay, as I said, the engine beds are going to go down on the floors. And actually, oddly enough, there are no floors in the last two bays there. But what's important to note is as we move aft, the section of the floor that's flat before the frame gets in the way gets less and less and less. And in fact, by the time I get to this floor right here, there's only 5.5 inches room across there. That one, there's less and then less. So I need to put a slight angled chamfer or bevel or piece out of the bottom of the timber so it will clear that last frame. And the way I'm going to find out how much I need is to slide this 2x6, which is the same width, back and see where it hits. See how it's hitting there? I just want to see how much it is hitting. I don't think you'll be able to watch me do this. Let's see. Can you see that mark there? That's basically marked, scribed against the end of this, against that frame. So I have to take off at least that much because there's a little bit more room. So let's go do that. And start to slide her down. Well, all right, it's in. I had to do a little trimming to make that bevel a little steeper to get it to roll into place, but it went well, and really excited about that. Let's make another one. Okay, so forward, back, down in the front. Oh, bloody hell! Down in the back. Beauty. Whew, that one fit perfectly. Oily. Okay, time to put some bolts in. These are 8-inch 3/8 lag bolts, and I'm going to just service bolt them, not countersink, at least for now, because remember, these are all coming out again in about 6 weeks. So I'm just going to put in enough that it's secure until I put the engine in, because I'm not quite sure where the engine mounts are. I could go up and measure them in the back of the truck, but I just want to make sure that it's all held together nicely. It's perfectly spaced fore and aft, exactly the same width, nice and tight against the original beds. This is going really well. Being straight in this direction is not nearly as urgent as being straight in this direction. So I'm going to use this like this. I wish I had a longer drill. Not much I can change now. Okay. So basically, if I get to about there, I'm good. It's always a little unnerving drilling holes downwards in a boat. Well, I can tell you, those old floors are pretty stout. Okay. Beauty. I like to just be pulling the washer into the wood. That lets me know it's really biting. Okay, perfect. Well, welcome to the Travels with Geordie Hot Cocoa of the Week. Yes, it's early in the morning on Saturday morning, and I don't really feel like having a beer right now, and I really feel like having some hot chocolate. So I'm going to let you in on a little technique I use for making hot chocolate, and it involves using one of these Nespresso frothers, and I'm telling you, it is absolutely fantastic. If you have a heavy cream addiction such as I do, it starts with a good dose of 18% cream. I realize this doesn't seem to be available in the United States, or certainly wasn't while I was cruising there. Okay, so all you do is start the frother on hot and start adding the yummy ingredients, which is a heaping tablespoon of sugar. And you have to add it relatively slowly or you'll derail the little propeller, and I'd really rather not do this right now. Actually, I'm going to put a hair more. There we go. And now the cocoa. And now this is a bit precarious because, as I said, it's quite possible to derail the little propeller in here. So you got to add this slowly. Oh yeah, it's going to be good. Well, this has been quite a night. The forecast called for up to 30 centimeters of snow for you in the part of the world that doesn't use centimeters, and I barely do. That's over a foot, 16 inches or so. We didn't get that. We probably got 8 inches, which is about 8 times as much as Victoria normally gets. So it was quite significant. So I set the alarm every 3 hours, overnight, to check on the bilge pumps and the amount of snow accumulation on deck because I didn't want it to get really heavy up there. Okay, so I put a bunch of cocoa in here, and that'll do me nicely. Now again, this is a very indulgent hot cocoa drink, but it's just what I need this morning after shoveling the docks, and there's plenty more to do. Okay, let's jump right into what we're doing while we wait for this to finish frothing. Last week's winner of a Travels with Geordie t-shirt was Dennis Reed. Congratulations, Dennis Reed. I'd like to thank two new patrons that came on this last week, David Stichler and Mark Hopkins. Thank you ever so much. I'll cheers you in a moment when the hot chocolate is ready, hot coke is ready. I'd also like to thank two new PayPal supporters that came on this week, James Glass, who has helped out several times before, and Philip Tremetsberger. I hope I pronounced that correctly, Philip. Thank you very much. And two updates on the Amazon wish list. In the last couple of weeks, we had a couple of things come in that I couldn't identify who they were from. One was the Klein barbecue set, which I have right here. Ever so cool. I haven't had a chance to use it yet, but we're going to get on that soon. And that came from Rob Kymicus. Thank you so much, Rob. And all the brass fuel valves, which are also right here. Wanted to have them handy. Came from Morton Christensen. Thank you so much. Whoa, we're ready here, and I want some of this as soon as possible. You see how frothy and yummy that looks? Oh my gosh, this is indeed a treat. There we go. Not for the faint of heart in terms of milk fat content. Cheers. Oh my God, but I feel like intensely rich chocolatey yumminess. That is okay, that's good. So cheers to all of you who I've just thanked. Thank you ever so much. And I'll just finish up. Oh my gosh, I don't have them handy because of the way I didn't set up this morning, but Mark Petto, who has been very kind to me already in the past, just sent me off a beautiful match set of new bronze Seacocks, which is unbelievable gift. Thank you so much, Mark. Two Seacocks, one for the engine raw water, one for the other raw water inlet, which will be things like wash down, water maker eventually, everything else that's raw water, and the discharge for the macerator, 1 1/4. Thank you ever so much, Mark. Now all you need, oh my gosh, this is so good and so timely, is a word of the week. If you'd like to win a Travels with Geordie t-shirt, you know the drill. Use the word snow in a comment down below, and I'll pick at random, and if I pick you, you'll get a Travels with Geordie t-shirt. See you next week. This will all be gone in a day or so.